Yeah, thank you.
I think we just have, can you hear now? You can hear now.
Yeah, we can hear now, thank you.
Brilliant, thanks.
Okay, on 21, the strategy, just a little bit of elaboration on halfway down, Chico's going down, it says map come as is commissioning capacity, and then later on, our next section, develops proposed to be commissioning model options. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit for me? Thanks.
Yeah, what we're describing there is basically the journey we need to go on. So saying what's the current status in terms of our commissioning resource, where it's organised, where it sits across council resources, and where do we need to get to be able to deliver the sorts of services and priorities that we're describing about for the future. So it's the as is to the to be, if you like.
Okay, thanks. I think, oh yes, I have one last one. It's values-based leadership, cultural change. Excuse me. It talks about empowerment, which is a good thing. Who in that context are we empowering? Top of page 22.
So the values-based leadership work we've been doing has been predominantly so far focused internally, but we have also done some work out into the communities, as you know, so that empowerment piece stretches across all of our range of activities, so from our staff through to working with our communities and service users. So it's looking at that whole system and looking at how we develop and embed empowerment approaches across that range of activity.
So we're not at the stage of knowing exactly what that empowerment looks like. That's something that's still to come, is it?
You recall from some of the previous reports that we put up to council, we've described quite a lot of activity that's already taken place. So be aware that the work that we've done in South and East Alloa, working with families there using Columba 1400. So it's that work that we've been doing, also what we've done with head teachers, the work we've done with head staff, and with ourselves actually elected members too. So it's that range of activity, but it's how we continue to develop and embed that. So it's just how we do things, you know, in terms of our culture as an organisation.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Thanks, Councillor Craig. Any other questions? Councillor Wood?
Yeah, on page 22, Margaret, community models. So we're working towards a sort of universal response to all the central issues that we deal with. Is that what we mean by that?
So, no, it's actually not. That's unusual. So what that's specifically referring to is if you think back to when we talked before about the council target operating model, and we describe a mixed economy of service delivery models where the council is not necessarily the provider of all services in the future. Excuse me. What that collaborative community models piece is talking about is how we work with partners in our communities to start to develop models as part of that broader economy. So that it's in that space.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No. Thanks, okay. Councillor Foster's in the division.
Thanks, Convener. The paper outlines the latest update of the Future Transformation Programme, and Council being asked to approve the annual statement of priorities for 2023-24, which are focused around the themes of sustainable and inclusive growth, empowering families and communities, and health and wellbeing. And the builds upon much of the ongoing work of the Council and their partners. The Council continues to operate in a very challenging context with significant financial pressures combined with an increasing demand on services. We are also faced with difficulties in recruiting to key posts, which impacts on our capacity to deliver our ambitions. It's for these reasons that agreeing our priorities are extremely important. Appendix 1A outlines an overview of the proposed priorities which will become part of the service business plans and should come really as a surprise to anyone around the table, as there have been a lot of discussions in relation to these. A couple that I would like to highlight in particular, the digital and data transformation. This has been a key part of work led by Stuart Clackmannanshire. The introduction of 365 is a big part of that, but also assessing and moving forward with digital options for our communities. The asset strategy review is also another area that's quite important. This has taken a lot longer than I think many of us would have liked, but as I alluded to before, there are significant issues in recruiting qualified staff to take that forward. It does need to drive forward though, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. Sustainable transport, we've discussed that a number of times around about the chamber, and the work that's going on now around the Family Wellbeing Partnership. We'll be looking at the challenges faced in relation to local transport, and hopefully working with our communities and third sector organisations, be able to come up with some solutions that will at least start to drive that forward. In addition, the Forth Valley Connectivity Commission should, fingers crossed, be in a position to report to all three councils, hopefully December moving forward. And I think the work that's coming out of that will also align with the work we're doing in sustainable transport. Tackling poverty, big agenda for this council, and I think we've all signed up to that, along with every single one of our community planning partnerships. This is Challenge Poverty Week. There's been a significant amount of work going on across both the council and our community planning partners in relation to this. Hopefully you've managed to kind of tune into some of that that's going on. I think later on today there's some work going on at Alva Academy in relation to supports that are available to communities. So again, I'd encourage everybody to get involved in that as much as possible. Workforce strategy, last council meeting we had a paper up from the service just detailing the interim strategy and the issues kind of faced there. Again, a lot of it is within recruitment. That isn't alone in Clackmannanshire Council. All 32 local authorities across Scotland are facing some of those issues. We are looking at innovative ways to address this, and I know myself and Lorraine Stanley met recently with the Open University, and there's some potential innovations and options that could come out of there that will at least help us to drive that forward. The values-based leadership culture change, anyone who knows me knows that I'm 100% bought into the Home 1400 work. The work that's been going on internally with the staff, but also elected members, has been fantastic. But there's been significant work going on in our communities, particularly around the Clacks 1400s. And for anybody who's not made it down to the Bowmar Centre on a Friday morning to see the community cafe there, again, I would really encourage you to go down, have a chat to the volunteers who are running that, who they would say themselves 2 years ago wouldn't have been able to take that on, and that's a great example of community capacity building for me. There's more in there, and I could probably go on and talk about this work, probably because I'm a lot closer to it than other people, but I think the priorities outlined there are the right ones for us, and I hope we can get support around the chamber. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Lindsay,
Thanks, Commissioner Monacoats. Yeah, just to fully endorse really what Councillor was just outlined. I don't think there's a huge amount left to actually put out there, but just to highlight my full support for the priorities that we laid out, particularly sustainable inclusive growth, empowering family and communities, and that health and wellbeing agenda. I think that empowering families and communities element will be coming forward strong today in the papers that are outlined as well. So I think some of the work that's been delivered, whether that's as I say, the papers that are going to be coming forward, whether that's school meals, whether that's the wellbeing hub activity, that's going to be coming through really, really strongly in terms of what our priorities are and the work streams that are associated with that. So just to, as I say, endorse the words of the council leader and to provide my support. Thanks.
okay, thank you. People's now open for debate. Debate. Okay, so the paper asks us to note the work to develop the council approach to streamlining the strategic planning framework, which is captured in paragraphs 31 to 37. The refreshed performance management framework, which is appendix 2, and ask approved to be the future annual statement of priorities for 23-24 and approved this morning covered in appendix 1. We have to approve. Thank you. Item 5 on the agenda is the annual Treasury Management Report. Lindsay, take us through. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, Council. This report gives an overview of the Treasury Management activities for the Council during the 22-23 financial year and outlines the Council's borrowing and investment positions at 31st March 2023. At 31st March 2023, cash balances remain at a sufficient level of 39.9 million, with 34 million of this invested in short-term investments. During the year, interest rates steadily increased and short-term investments and cash balances earned a higher than budgeted return of 608,000 in interest. Whilst this rate increase has been beneficial for investments, it also increases the cost of any future external borrowing to fund capital investment. External borrowing continues to reduce, and as at the 31st of March 2023, external borrowing stood at 134 million. During the year, repayments of 2.9 million were made and no additional external borrowing was undertaken to finance capital expenditure. The Council continues to remain in an under-borrowed position, which means that it is not borrowing more than it is expending on capital resources. The report confirms the Council's compliance during the year with the Treasury and Prudential limits as set out in the annual Treasury Management Strategy Report approved by Council in March 2022. During the year, the 75% limit for variable rate investments was exceeded. This was to a maximum of 89.2%, as set out in paragraph 3.48 of the report. This limit was reviewed as part of the annual Treasury Strategy Statement for 23-24, has been increased to 100%. This will allow returns to be maximised within the Council's investment priorities of security first, liquidity second, and then return. The report also provides some brief commentary on the economic background and comparison of the Council's capital expenditure and financing requirements compared to the approved Prudential indicator. Council is asked to note and consider the information presented in the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Lindsay. Do you have any questions? Councillor Denny.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just one. Are we optimising the high interest rates that are there at the moment to get as much as possible out of the money that's being saved?
In other words, yes, we are the Treasury team are trying their best to take advantage of those higher interest rates, and I think that's shown by the interest that we've managed to generate in the last financial year at 608,000, which was over our budgeted return. And the appendix at the back of the report details what investments we have and what interest rates attributed to them. So our short-term investments are invested in quite favourable rates. However, this is at the 31st of March, so we know that the interest rate is increased since then, and we've got some higher interest rate. But we are, when we invest the money, as I said, the Council needs to make sure it's in sequence, so we make sure that the security of our investments are first, so make sure that we're not putting any investments in anything risky, and liquidity to make sure we've got instant access to our money to pay our bills. So return comes third on that priority list, but we are doing as much as we can to get the interest in.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Coyne.
Thank you, Julie. Just a follow-up to that point, Lindsay. On 37, page 37, appendix 1, there are a number of types of investment that are listed here as instant access. Taking that at face value and focusing now on the BlackRock money market fund, which at that time was getting 4.06%. The others are all considerably less than that. What is the rationale for not putting everything into BlackRock?
In terms of risks, to ensure we're not taking undue risk, we need to spread our investments across different providers. So that's one of the reasons why we wouldn't put it all in the one area into BlackRock. These rates were, the other ones were kind of slow to take up the increased interest rate, but they have increased over the past few months. So when we get the next report, which is the first quarter's report for Treasury, you should see that increase. But generally, we don't, we wouldn't be putting all our money, like all our eggs in one basket, to spread it around.
I accept that. I mean, there must be quite an array of potential places to invest your money. So you're only looking at a handful here. Surely it would be possible to pick the top 4 and then the rest of the top 4.
We use our treasury advisors to guide us as to what would be the best investments to invest in. And there's a couple of things with that. So we need to make sure that the security of the investment. So we have to make sure that we're investing in the UK. So we can't invest outside the UK. And also the time to set up the accounts if we've not already got them. So it does take time to set those up. So I think we do have an extra few other accounts that we've added to our portfolio list to do that. But at the moment, those were the standard ones that we had.
And you need performance check your investing advisors, and just take their word for it.
We don't just rely on our treasury advisors, so we do look around the markets, but they're a very well-known treasury advisors, and they're treasury advisors to a number of local authorities as well, so we have a lot of confidence in what they say.
Okay, thanks. Just while I've got it. So, page 39. Go on half the page. Yeah, what about upper and lower limits? Just a question. Who sets those limits?
So they're proposed by the Treasury team and set by the Council as part of the annual Treasury strategy. Again, they're recommended as part of from the Treasury advisors.
Okay, but you can actually choose them yourselves if you wish to do that. It's completely okay. Thanks. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Chair. Page 32, 3.38, the council PFI lease, the payment of 1.237 million. Is that an overpayment, or is that just what was due?
That's just the annual payment that's due, so we don't make any overpayments. We just pay the amount that's due.
Is there any circumstances in which you do make overpayments to things where savings on interest would be beneficial to the council over the longer term? Is that something that we indulge in?
So we only have a small number of these type of things, so there's not much opportunity to make savings. But if something is like us that would be a benefit to overpay, then we could earn more in interest and put it in deposit, then we look at that. But at the moment, there's nothing that we have in the portfolio that would benefit from that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lee. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Councillor Paulson, to make a
Councillor Leader. Council have been asked to note and consider the 22-23 annual Treasury Management Report, which is a statutory report outlining the Council's Treasury management activities. I think it's safe to say that, well, in the first paper I would have talked for Scotland on it. I find this paperwork a wee bit more challenging, and it does take a lot more effort to understand and to be able to scrutinise. That being said, I was quite pleased that I would have been able to answer at least one of Councillor Coyne's questions there, so the things are sticking in after all those years. So the information within the report is in line with the repeat Treasury Management strategy. One area I wanted to highlight is that the report does outline underspends in our capital expenditure. These have been carried forward to allow for the completion of the delayed projects. I think we've rehearsed over the piece the reasons for these underspends, the challenging context in which we're working in, and we are still dealing with the effects of the pandemic, Brexit, and other challenges there. It is worth noting though that these underspends have also contributed to a lower than anticipated need to borrow, which I think is at least a positive, so happy to propose the paper.
Councillor Lindsay to second.
You're happy to go on a second.
Okay, paper's open for debate. Any wishes to debate the paper? Councillor Coyne.
Just to recommend the paper, I think it's extremely and it's complex, and there's a lot of stuff in it. Actually, it's relatively well explained, and it would be easier to understand for many in the sport, so no hesitation to support the paper.
Thank you to that, but a number of questions didn't ask about people. Anybody else? No. Okay, so Force she wanted to sum up. So the papers simply ask us to know, consider the report for 22-23 in the treasury management activities. Just content to approve the paper. Thank you. Item 6 is the corporate risk management strategy report. Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. This report presents a refreshed corporate risk management strategy building on years of continuous improvement in this area of work. The strategy covers every aspect of our intended approach to risk management and seeks to accelerate organisational maturity and awareness in that regard, with clear objectives as set out. An important innovation is an explicit statement of risk appetite set out in Appendix A that should aid and guide decision making of staff in any role at any level in the organisation, consistent with our values and be the future outcomes. The strategy provides guidance, checklists and deployment plans and provides a springboard to ensuring consistency with good practice to support sound decision making and judgment, and should play an important role in strengthening our risk and control environment. We're happy to take any questions to me, and I have my colleague Judy online also that will help with some of the trickier detail if necessary.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Do you have any questions? Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, it's an overarching question. There's not any of the detail of which there is a lot. It appears seems to indicate there's a huge amount of energy involved in this process. And my question relates to, do you have an idea of what percentage of the total energy of the council that this consumes?
The short answer is no. Probably the more accurate answer is no. I guess to some extent, risk, and Judy just touching it in this paper, risk and the assessment of risk comes into everything that officers do on a day-to-day basis. And actually, the council are involved in making decisions as well. So I think the actual culture, the knowledge, the expertise, the development, and actually having a shared and collective understanding of the risks and making sure that is understood as part of our control environment, and that we're making sure through audit scrutiny, through managerial scrutiny and curiosity, that we're taking action to address those risks. So it's actually pretty fundamental to what we do as an organisation, probably in any organisation, but more fundamentally in a public service organisation. So I probably couldn't say, but I think in terms of at business planning time, yes, you're doing the risk when we're preparing a report for audit and scrutiny, we're looking at risk, and probably project plans, we're looking at risk, and we're expecting this format is the format that will be used when you're looking at health and safety, you're assessing risk. So it's coming through, but in terms of probably every decision that any manager makes at any time, or indeed any customer-facing member of staff, and I think that's what for me, I really quite like about that Appendix A, because it's kind of saying, look, we're actually quite eager to look at these kind of areas, but we're actually resistant against taking risks with our governance. And so it kind of gives those guidelines. It's not setting tablets of stone, but it gives a general guideline about the kind of areas where we've got more appetite for risk, and other areas where we've got zero or less appetite for risk. Sorry, I think that's been a very long-winded answer to your question, but the short answer, as I said at the start, is no apologies.
No apology necessary. The reason I was asking the question is because there is a risk in managing risk, insofar as if you've got finite energies, the proportion of that energy that you devote to risk management is of interest to the whole process. And I just wanted to be comfortable that it's maybe in the region of 0 to 5% anything, and not 30 to 40% of the council's energy. Then it almost comes down to that.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Coffey.
Thanks, Convener. On page 65, the middle table,
Leaders fail to promote risk awareness. Obviously, we're not achieving the target score there. In terms of managing that and improving that, what work is ongoing to start from the top in terms of leaders being more effective at promoting risk awareness down through the levels to the staff, because obviously risk assessment and risk is everybody's responsibility.
Yeah, I think I think this is part and parcel of being a manager and making sure that when proposals are put to you as a manager by your staff, that you're asking has that risk been assessed and you're able to make those judgments yourself. So as part of this strategy, we would roll that out as part of the wider management development work that we do on things like performance and risk. So we've got guides along that level. I guess it's quite difficult because this is very explicit. I think it touches on the point that Councillor Coyne made about how much time we spend on this. We're deploying this. We've got an expectation that this is what our managers use and what our staff use. But I guess if I was to kind of look at information management, there are expectations of risk management there, business continuity management. There's expectations of risk assessment there, but also health and safety. So there's quite a lot in terms of all the training that we do about governance and control, in terms of making sure that assists are assessed and managed properly. But the core element is this, in terms of the deployment of this to all managers, and then the support that we do with that. And Judy, who's on the call today, is quite active in making sure that she's meeting up with all the management team, she's helping them with the risk register, and she's helping them develop in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Forsyth,
Thanks, Convener. Council has been asked to approve the corporate risk management strategy. Risk is outlined in the report as a daily issue, and we need to be clear about how we expect these to be handled across the organisation and have a routine process. This is never more important than at times of transformation, like we're in just now, where higher than usual levels of risk may be present, and I think that the risk appetite statement as outlined in Appendix A provides the right balance for our current context, and I'll propose the paper.
okay, thank you. Councillor Lindsay, second.
Yeah, just happy to again formally second. Appreciate the questions that have come from the chamber. I think that's it can clarify some of the issues that perhaps outlined within the paper in terms of overall risk assessment. But happy with the content of the paper, and happy with the answers that Stuart's been providing there as well in relation to questions. So
Thanks. Any questions in the debate? Councillor Coyne.
Thanks, Convener. Despite my question, I think this is an excellent paper. Huge amount of detail, a lot of effort gone into it. It sort of looks as if we should be a risky organisation in no time at all.
Thank you. Any other contributions? No. So just to ask the vote, Chairman, to comment on the corporate risk management strategy, and I'm then so to approve. You happy to approve? Thank you. Item 7 is HR policy, special leave provision. Just take us through the paper.
Thank you, Convener. Council. The paper has tabled substantial approval to amend from the point of agreement with Council, Section 16 of our special leave provisions to provide paid leave entitlement for staff wishing to serve in the children's home, the Justice of the Peace, or undertake mentoring of a young person with a recognised youth mentoring scheme. Council will recall that at its August meeting, Clackmannanshire Council's promise plan for 23 to 26 was scrutinised and formally approved. One of the commitments within the plan was a review of current provisions for employees who serve in children's homes as justices or undertake mentoring of a young person through a recognised scheme such as the ACR pathways. Given this commitment, we have reviewed our provisions and proposed an interim amendment to our special leave procedures until such time as we undertake a full review of the next scheduled review date, which is May next year. The current provisions allow for unpaid leave, whilst the interim amendment provides for paid leave. These changes have been discussed and agreed with our TV colleagues and was further tabled at tripartite on the 13th of September. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Do you have any questions from people? Councillor Quinn?
There we go. Well, thank you, Peter. Just a quick question. If you know how this compares to other local authorities, what ones do we do worse than in other local authorities? Which ones do we do better than with this policy here? Because I mean, I compare this to my other job, you know, some of these quite generous, some not so generous, so I just compare things and compare to others.
So we did a benchmark. We did a benchmarking, we didn't get massive amounts of responses. So again, there's like most benchmarking with local authorities, it's a mixed picture.
Yeah.
Some provide unpaid leave, some provide paid leave. Falkirk, for example, provide paid 5 or paid, or guide on periods of unpaid leave. None of them came back to say that they gave paid time off for entering the relief programme. So we're kind of, from response to the government, I guess quite limited of us to introduce that into the policy. Shows a commitment to the promise.
Well, thanks very much for that. That's all what that's.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hanson. Just roughly, what's the time commitment that you expect to see from us?
We hope to improve and maybe promoting the staff and people serving it. At the moment, I can't quantify it because staff may be taking the steps in the way because it's not paid, so it's not technically recorded in our system. So we want to in terms of uptake and progress, and hopefully what this will say will promote it again with links to the promise and the promise plan.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I might have missed this, but I was interested to know your alignment to the promise plan, the staff that are being in the process of adopting, or maybe it's maybe a family that's taking on a child that's not the one in whatever way, whether it be kinship or fostering. Is there a mechanism for paid leave for them? Just to notice the Tesco, they've actually started to give paid leave to kinship carers. So I think that's next week, but we do that already. That's good to hear. I must have missed it.
We have separate policies in terms of family-friendly policies and charity adoption, so it's in different purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Chris. Councillor Foster, do you have anything?
Yeah, happy to move the paper, convener. As the champion for the promise, one of the pieces of work we're leading on is ensuring that all council policies are consistent with us keeping the promise, and this certainly moves in the right direction. I was actually quite surprised to learn that we didn't offer paid leave already for children's panel members. I was a children's panel member previously, and in my previous job I did receive paid leave to do that, and I know that local neighbouring authorities and community planning partners also offer paid leave, so that brings us into line with those, which is just right. The other area where I'm quite keen and pleased to see brought forward is that those people who are volunteering to be mentors. We are actively encouraging members of the public to come forward and join our mentoring schemes because they play a huge role in young people's lives and are actually key to us delivering the promise. We have got partnerships with MCR Pathways and other mentoring schemes, so ensuring that council employees can get paid leave to take part in these is really, really key. I think it's right, though, as an organisation, that there are limits on paid leave. We can't just say, off you go, take as much time as you want to do these duties. And I think the agreed amounts that we've arrived at here in consultation with the trade unions are quite right, and will offer staff members across the council to participate where they wish to within these organisations. And I would certainly encourage staff and their managers to make sure that this is kind of cascaded out, and it might encourage more people to come forward. But happy to see this here today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hamilton, to the second.
Thanks, convener. I don't have too much more to add on to Ellen, but would just like to reiterate that these norms really shouldn't be underestimated, the positive impacts they can have on our community. And if people want to come to support staff to take active roles, and I'm happy to second the paper.
Thank you. Papers open for debate. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I'd like to say I'm really happy to see this, and I'm happy to see it in a framework where we're moving towards keeping the promise, and that all gaps are being filled on the way. You know, things like, I'm no expert, but things like the promise doesn't just appear in a day, it has to be worked towards. And every time we come to a meeting, we're getting more and more that things are actually been looked through the filter of the promise. So, yeah, I'm delighted with it.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other contributions? Councillor.
Yeah, I recommend the paper to the council as well, because it's an excellent initiative in order to encourage people into some area. Having said that, I would also like to compliment the preparer of the paper for the method in which they've done it. I like the idea of being able to see what was and what will be in terms of the amendments. That's a very good way to proceed with corrections like this. Okay.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Dawson, do you want to start? Okay, so the paper's asking us recommend to council immediate effect to amend section 16 special leave procedure to provide pay leave entitlement for staff as necessary in children's panels with assisted peace alternative mentor and one person to recognise youth mentoring scheme. Happy to approve. Thank you. Item 8 is the Road and Rocky School project update. What is going to take us through that? Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, Council. I'm pleased to present this paper, which provides an update on the Wellbeing Hub and Walking School project. At the August Council meeting, I provided a detailed report on the supply chain selection process of the design team, main contractor and professional teams led by Hub East Central Scotland. This thorough and highly competitive process has now concluded, and I'm pleased to share the following selections. JM Architects have been selected to lead the design team, Robertson's Construction have been selected as the main contractor, Baker Hicks have been selected as mechanical and electrical engineers, Blythe and Blythe have been selected as civil and structural engineers, and this key milestone allows the project to officially move to Viva Stage 2 concept design phase, which will officially kick off from next week. I'm happy to take any questions on the paper.
Do you have Councillor?
Thanks. Just one thing, Robbie. All these contractors that you're getting at, it's great that everything's starting to come together. I'm looking forward to it. Are they reasonably local people that are coming in to do this? And we're not getting them from out of Hebrides or down south somewhere. We're getting them local.
No, we're from the Hebrides, sorry.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So essentially, yes, and that's been a key driver for the partner selection process as well, is to ensure that sort of two parts that we made it really clear that the local supply chain has to be a big part of the submission for all of the contractors. So obviously that makes it slightly easier for those contractors that are closer to home. So Robertson's, for example, their base is only 6 miles from Clackmannanshire. Their supply chain predominantly is local suppliers in and around Stirling, Clackmannanshire and Forth Valley. And JM Architects, although they're based in Edinburgh, again, a number of their key projects are key local supply chain. We work through the design team. So again, that's the key driver. And just in terms of that kind of local supply chain is a key driver through the Scottish Futures Trust framework, which they're all expected to fill in. The national average for that is about 30%, and Robertson's, for example, is sitting at about 42% in terms of that local supply chain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawson.
Yeah, just it's almost like a follow-up on that. Obviously, community wealth building is a huge part of this council's values, and we see it as absolutely key. So for a significant project that is going to be so much investment, the community wealth building aspect of that for me is particularly good. You mentioned about local suppliers, but there's so much more to community wealth building. things like the community benefits wish list, etc. I'm just seeking assurances really that all of these contractors have been made absolutely clear what's expected of them in relation to this and how we're going to scrutinise to make sure our communities are getting the most out of what's a significant investment for the council. Because I am aware that maybe not always in the past have contractors delivered where we'd expected them to.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Forson. Again, probably just to go back to the figures that I quoted previously, so that social and local economic value target is one that we've set and been really clear with throughout this. One of the reasons why Robertson's, for example, was selected ahead of other main contractors that applied was their social and local economic value target was the highest, quite significantly higher than the other main contractor. And what that means is a whole lot of detail sits under that around apprenticeships, around local suppliers, always going local first, and if they can't meet the need of that, then we then go out with that. So we have a job to do to hold into account that. You're absolutely right. Paul Morris from our team has also been involved in a team of work with their social impact officer throughout the project to ensure they are held to account in that. And I think it's absolutely critical that for building something of this scale, it's a huge investment for the council. We have to make sure that that investment is kept as much as possible within the council throughout the supply chain, throughout the development of the construction of the project. But again, even the likes of Robertson's have a number of promises around buses and around the local skills academy, for example, that will be kept as a legacy as part of this project. So it won't just be about construction, but about how we leave a legacy for a number of the schools and young people and local community beyond the project.
Just to follow up on that, there are lots of priorities within there. Will council have the opportunity to have an input in any of the requests that we might be making of these contractors?
Yes. I think it's important that we keep scrutinising that. We get input from a number from council and other key experts around this area before we get to final contract finalisation. And I think we have that period between now and next year to really scrutinise that and really hold the contractors to account before we get on site with the actual construction of the building.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cliff.
That's been no, just want to say thanks for what you've been doing. Yeah, it's nice to see some good local companies here that are going to be on board with us for this. So this is going to work out really good. One thing I want to ask about is kind of a big focus on this is obviously the public engagement, and that's kind of been a bit of a main point for us up to this point. Now that we've got this in place, what is there going to be any point in the near future then where the public are going to be involved, where there's going to be public consultation that you can tell us about when that's going to be and what it's going to be like? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So as we kick off from next week on the concept design phase, that really kicks off the beginning of that stakeholder engagement, which is a critical part. So there'll be a number of key, it's essentially key gateways through pre-planning and planning. You have to do community consultation anyway, but we will do that throughout the concept design phase as well. And one of the things we've also committed to is to work with a local group and work with people with lived experience to work alongside the design team as well. So getting that real detailed community engagement throughout, not just at key gateways, but actually throughout the development of the design. So it's again a really important part of this project. It's something that kicks off really from next week, and over the next 8 weeks we'll do the stakeholder engagement, and then we'll be able to share some initial concept designs with the public. And I know that everybody's waiting to see what's it going to look like, when's it coming, and I think it's an exciting phase because at the moment it's been a lot worse, but actually we're now getting to the stage where we can start to show people what it's going to look like and doing building segments and also everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further, Councillor Tarrant?
Thanks, Convener. Robbie, I take it that the contractors are fully aware of net zero targets and their aspirations towards reducing carbon emissions in Clackmannanshire.
Yes, absolutely. This project, one of the commitments that we brought to council and agreed as council was to go with passive house certification for this building, which is actually higher than the building standards and will play a huge part in working towards net zero. Again, as part of the selection of all of the contractors, they had to have experience in delivering passive house projects. So Robertson, for example, just handed over the first passive house school in Scotland, at Riverside Primary School in Perth and Ross. And it probably can't describe just how much above the levels that we expect the Passive House will deliver. We've had a meeting with Exeter City Council, who have the first Passive House leisure centre in the UK. They're already showing 60% less energy consumption. So the impact on the environment is significantly reduced through a building of this quality and this standard that we're going to hold each of the contractors to account on.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor, sorry.
That's right. Just going back to the previous papers where we spoke about risk, I was just wondering if there's any sort of safety nets and who's ultimately responsible if any of the design team stray into any trouble, because obviously I work in the construction industry and I'm aware that it's going through a lot of change at the moment and there's a lot of downturn. Some of these companies, I'm not saying they aren't, but they could run into trouble down the line. Is there a safety net in place and who's responsible for the ensuring of the project, which is key?
Thanks for the question. I mean, risk analysis is an absolutely critical part of this type of project and a project of this scale. We've actually just done a risk workshop with the project team last week to really continue to go through what are those key risks that we need to make sure we're on top of. In terms of mitigating those risks, part of the reason we're going with a framework provider like Hubby Central takes away some of the risk because the supply chain sits within it's their supply chain essentially, and we're working with them in the design and build contract. But that doesn't change in terms of risk within that. Until we get through to next year in contract finalisation with the main contractor, the only risk, or the main risk we have, is any costs associated with the concept design phase. So I think there was questions last meeting, I think so point which asked around where we sit with that. Up until next year, we're only committed to essentially £4 million in this project to get it to construction phase. If for whatever reason that main contractor had any issues, we would still be in a position where we could change and move. And that's where Hubby Central supply chain would kick in and we'd all to make sure we still have the ability to deliver the project and remove any stalls in the project at any time.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Rob. Thank you. Councillor Anderson,
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, really delighted to see this paper being presented today. It is a huge step forward for the Wellbeing Hub and Lochie School. It has followed a rigorous selection process which saw a number of architects bid for this project, so it was obviously very attractive to the architects. The selection of the architects, main contractors, as well as the M&E engineers and civil and structural engineers now allows us to move on to Engineer Stage 2, which is the concept design, which is great to see us moving into that. J&M Architects came out on top in what was a very competitive and exciting process. And I say it was exciting because the designs that we actually saw from different architects just gave us an idea of what is actually achievable and just showed us what was possible. Again, following a thorough process, Robertson Construction have been selected as the main contractor with Baker Hicks, as Robbie's mentioned, as the M&E engineers and Blythe by civil and structural. All the contractors bidding had to complete the Scottish Futures Trust themes, outcomes and measures framework, and that calculates the social and local economic value of the project. And Robertson, as Robbie pointed out, were way ahead of any of the others on that. Just kind of building on some of the questions that were asked by some of our councillors as well, I'll kind of have a wee run through of what that means and what that looks like and what we are going to hopefully hold Robertsons to account for, because they're making all these promises to us, which is great. They are at 42.5% of the total value of the project, where I think the average is about 30%. They've all worked with the local employability partners across Clackmannanshire to promote all the opportunities linked to the project to recruit local people wherever possible. Work placements, jobs and apprenticeships from Robertsons on supply chain will be promoted directly via the LEPs such as Clacksworks and Snippets. They will liaise with Clacksworks, who are responsible for the local recruitment incentives, to hopefully promote that through the supply chain and will continue to engage as the process goes on. They will host information sessions with these partners as the project continues as well. Community building was mentioned as a question, and we want to create employment opportunities
as this continues. CTSI have been involved. Community wish list was mentioned by Councillor Forson. Robertson's have said that they've worked with CTSI to progress the community wish list. There is also a skills academy, and Robertson's have actually got a property right next door to the site, and they're going to use that existing office and warehouse facility as a skills academy, and that will continue throughout the project, providing a local base for the design team, and that will continue as long as the project is continuing. They've also committed to providing a bus service for workers to get down to the site, and they've committed that once the project is completed, they will hand that bus over to Clackmannanshire Council. So I think that there's lots of positive intent there from Robertson's. There has been questions about what that means for us as a council, so I think it's very positive so far. So as a slight add-on to that, we are also launching a competition for our young learners in the area to design part of the outdoor spaces, and 5 winners of that will get an opportunity to spend time with the architects. So I hope that shows that we are looking at the wider benefits to the community as well as just building the building of the multi-school itself. We're looking forward on that. So yeah, happy to move this week.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Ward, second.
I'd just like to formally second this and just say I'm really excited for the second stage design phase, so covered everything with that.
Okay, thank you. The floor is open for debate. Can you wish to debate it? Councillor Bennett.
Yes, thank you for the time here, the local school and the swimming pool. It's more than a swimming pool, of course, it's a whole way of life for some people who've never had that. So it's great that we are looking at having as many people as possible within the community to actually be involved in it. The more people we have involved in it, the better it's actually going to be for everybody in Clackmannanshire. I might not be able to see it 7 years, 8 years down the line, but exactly that, you know, I mean, it is after the installation. But what we're seeing just now, although it's not visible as yet, we're seeing a mindset that we're determined to actually get this done and get it done properly, and that's the main thing. And thank you for laughing at me. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm assuming it's because you've got a lottery ticket. I'm told anybody. Anybody else? Councillor Lindsay.
I'm not sure if Councillor Benny was going to give the facility named after her or something. Yeah, I think this is, it's a hugely exciting project overall, but not least for, what's been outlined by Robbie and by Scott, just in terms of the additional value and additional benefits that we're going to see through the construction phase, through the design construction, and then thereafter. All of these additional benefits are hugely welcome. Obviously, we're looking at the outcome of what this is. It's a facility that we very much need. It contains a swimming pool. It's going to contain another whole number of other facilities and services that are required, and that link, as I outlined in one of the previous papers, how that aligns, almost all of the corporate priorities that we discussed earlier on in the paper. So, hugely exciting. It's a hugely exciting milestone. We get the fact that there's still not a spade in the ground yet, but in terms of where we are along the timeline that's been laid out, well on track with that, and I've been hugely impressed. Perhaps maybe because I'm closer to it, but hugely impressed with Robbie in terms of leading this and the work that's going on with the whole team in and around this, not just council but out as well to get us to this stage. I think there's a couple of things. Obviously, the public engagement, and it was highlighted by Brian as well, that is crucial. And I think we should pay tribute to the amount of public engagement that we've done. And this has probably been, I think we've referenced this previously, that the amount of public engagement that's been done on this to this stage already has been significant, if not one of the most, one of the highest in terms of engagement that we've done in terms of projects across the council. So that needs to continue though, so that we don't just stop here. We're now at a crucial phase and it's important we continue to engage with the public. The other big one is that we are massively bucking the trend at the moment. You won't have to go on, whether it's social media or any news outlet, to see that some of our colleagues across the country are really struggling to keep facilities open. And here we are looking to put a passive house facility, a highly energy efficient facility in place that's going to be sustainable for the future, which is what we require. So, I think it justifies the decision that we've taken with the previous facility and now where we're moving now, that we've invested absolutely in the right way and heading in the right direction. And for me, that's what makes it even more so exciting. So, just to echo everything else that Scott said there, just about those additional benefits and what we're seeing coming with that. Thanks to Robbie for the presentation and the detailed answers to the questions that were provided this morning. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Forson.
Yeah, I just want to echo the comments that have been made today. This is another milestone in the journey to the new wellbeing hub. It's another box ticked. We're getting there slowly, and hopefully now the contractors have been appointed, we'll see things motoring on a little bit more. As Councillor Lindsay highlighted, in neighbouring authorities there are issues around about the viability of leisure hubs and leisure facilities, particularly swimming pools. And I think we did make the right decision in relation to passive house. It's really not just for the environmental targets, but there will also be efficiencies there that will make the facility not just sustainable environmentally, but financially as well. So very positive there. Councillor Harrison, I think, introduced the paper really well there. The only thing I think he missed out was the opportunities that we will have to link in with the promise in relation to this. And as the promise champion, I'm going to keep on mentioning this at every opportunity. With the contractors, there's going to be a great opportunity to bring forward benefits for looked after children. And I know that Lorraine Sanda is personally taking track of those benefits with the managing director for Robertson's, and I'm sure she'll hold his feet to the fire on that one, and I'll hold her feet to the fire in addition to that. So good paper, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other Councillor?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on one small detail that Scott mentioned, which was the involvement of children in the project and a lack of basically involvement competition in getting. I think that's an excellent idea. It's also a very good way to manage a soft message to the community as well. When if they get involved in projects that surround their project at school, they're talking to the parents about it, and that's making the awareness and the involvement in accurate, fact-based information. Okay,
thank you. Any others? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Convener. I just want to add my thanks to Councillor Harrison for giving us such a comprehensive insight into the actual involvement that's going on behind this paper. I think it's important that we are made aware of the different elements. It's not just a building, it's not just something that's going to appear on the ground. It's something that's going to have a massive amount of community involvement, community benefit, and a legacy. And I think Councillor Harrison's proposal should actually get front page in the advertiser. So thanks, Convener.
Okay, any other contributions? Seconds. Anything else? No. Opportunity to start, Councillor Harrison.
Well, I was actually going to say thanks for Jane making the glossary of it. And I was conscious when Graham and Frank Robbie, I normally do, but what Jane's just said, that's no credit to me really. It's Robbie and the team. They have done a fantastic job all the way through. A lot of it unseen. It really has been a fantastic effort from Robbie and the rest of the team. So genuinely thanks to them. So yeah, if there's anybody in the front of the advertisers, Robbie.
Okay, so the paper is recommending simply that we know actually, and looking through that at the end, and I think at one point I've seen to recommend that I think it's probably touched on already, it's 2.5 pages of an A4, and actually feels like probably one of the significant papers in front of us this morning, a genuine step forward. So, on that note, I'll be happy to note the paper as presented. Thank you. Item 9 is the provision of preschool meals for looked after children. It's academics, so paper before we give Councillor Martin an opportunity.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, Councillor. So this paper seeks council agreement to extend the entitlement to preschool meals to children who are in kinship care or who are what is termed as looked after at home, and that means that they're under supervision requirement of Children's Services Social Work. Children who fall into these two categories are not automatically entitled to preschool meals. The eligibility criteria is set by Scottish Government, and it's based largely on income and benefit thresholds. Clackmannanshire has a higher proportion of children in kinship care than most. Our current figures are roughly about 43%, whereas nationally it sits around about 34%. And that is a good thing. It means that those children are staying within their families. They're largely looked after by grandparents, aunts or siblings, and they are caring for children sometimes in really challenging circumstances. So as part of our commitment to the promise, we're making all efforts, as you've heard today, to keep children at home and in their communities, which means a commitment to supporting those kinship carers and the families who have a child that is looked after at home. This additional measure, if approved by Council today, will support approximately 134 pupils and cost just over £30,000 for this remaining year. In future years, this commitment will need to be considered as part of the budget setting process. I'm happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Do we have any questions?
Thank you, Convener. I'm just wondering about the rationale here. That's a bit annoying. I couldn't read the rationale on the paper. We're overspending the allotment by 9%, and we're looking at spending it by a further 2.5%. So what are we taking away to cover that gap? Where's the trade-off? This is not a bad thing to do, but it needs to be better than what we're currently spending that overspend on. And you fill the gap.
So as the paper sets out, we were able to take the current requirement of funding for this year out of an underspend of COVID funding, so that's fairly straightforward. In terms of future years, we would need to agree that as part of the budget setting process, which would mean that we would need to decide on our priorities for the council and whether this is a priority the councillors actually agree with or not. We're putting it forward as a proposal for now for this remaining year, but I think you're absolutely right to highlight it's a question of priorities and where there are savings can be made elsewhere, and whether we think this is an important enough one for a decision by council.
What I said in worrying about is if this is granted and then taken away, that's worse than not doing it at all, I think. So would you agree with that, and how would you mitigate that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We never want to give people money and then take it away from them, particularly for parents and families who are really struggling with challenges. I think, again, just can only repeat what I said, it's like this question for council to agree on that priority and to agree whether that as part of the budget process for council, that's something that they agree is a priority. It's really not my decision, it's a council decision.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Robert, it mentions here in the paper about the Scottish Government criteria, so this would be over and above that. Is there any other children that we're currently given that are over and above this criteria that we're given free school meals? Or would this be the first that we're given this today?
So the paper, paragraph 3.5, mentions that we're already, for children who have additional support needs and attend lockies, and the primary and secondary support, they also get preschool meals. So that's another category that we've already taken that decision. That's fairly standard across most authorities in Scotland.
Okay, nice.
Okay, so Councillor Tan.
Thanks, Convener. Lorraine, foster carers that are not kinship carers, do these children get free school meals? Nice.
Not automatically, and we haven't, they get other allowances, which would compensate. The kinship allowance is less than the foster care allowances, and you know, as part of the promise, and this is why this group has been brought forward, as part of the promise we want to support kinship carers, foster carers obviously support them too, but it's a different category, but no, they don't automatically get customers.
Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm just thinking, if we agree to this now, if it goes ahead, is there any mechanism in which we can say effectively it's a statement, but look at the impact it's had and report that back to the government as a tool for maybe getting more funding to cover that gap? That's something we could potentially do.
Absolutely. I think as part of the work that we do with the Promise team, the National Promise team, and the steps that we've taken so far, we keep very close contact with them. And overall, we have a balance, and perhaps cover that in the subsequent paper. But we pay a lot of money for our children to go out with this authority. And I suppose it's back to Councillor Collins' question: where is the money going to come from? If we can keep more of those children in Clackmannanshire with kinship care, one, it saves the council a lot of money, significant amounts of money. But actually, we also need to make sure that those supports are in place for those kinship carers. And I think, given the numbers that we have, I think there is an argument that we try and support them in every way that we possibly can. But we need to feed that back to Scottish Government and let them know that that is contributing to us reducing our external placements, our external foster placements, and actually retaining our children here, which part of the promise is to keep our children in Clackmannanshire and bring them back to Clackmannanshire, and this is an attempt to make that case. That perhaps answers the question that we were digging at previously, which is where the money come from. So we are saving money by children coming back into Clackmannanshire and reducing their external foster placements.
Thank you. Thanks, colleagues. And then back connected online. Can I ask Councillor Lindsay to move the paper, please?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, I'm pleased to propose this paper which will provide free school meals for all children who attend schools in Clackmannanshire who are looked after at home and looked after by kinship carers, as the ladies know. And this is yet another measure the Council's implementing to provide additional support to our families, children and families who need it most. So, for example, over the last year or so, we've already increased the allowance for kinship carers and foster carers as part of last year's budget. We've written off school debt.
in the last academic year, and we've increased the school clothing grant recently at the last council meeting. Parents of children who are looked after at home or with kinship carers do not automatically qualify, as has been outlined by Lorraine, and unless they meet that the criteria in the paper that's outlined. As part of the Council's commitment under the promise, but most importantly, as our role as corporate parents, it is proposed that the Council extends the eligibility beyond primary 1 to 5 to all pupils who are looked after at home and looked after by kinship carers, and that's estimated to be around 134 pupils who attend schools across Clackmannanshire who are not currently entitled to free school meals. Again, as has been noted, this level goes beyond the current support provided by Scottish Government for school meals, but I do recognise the point that Councillor Lee made in relation to building that case for additional funding. I'll probably allow Councillor Forson to make that point as well, and I'm sure she will, around continuing to build the case in terms of our specific needs in Clackmannanshire and requirements. I think this council and this administration are going above and beyond, as we really should as corporate parents, to support our most vulnerable, but we need support, and we need support from the Scottish Government and otherwise to do that. So for me, this is the right thing to do. I hear Councillor Coyne's points. We do need to be realistic and prudent, and I think it's the right thing to do to question whether this is affordable given our current financial context. But for me, this should be a priority, and as such, we have to look at how we best resource that priority. So that's the basis on which I'm proposing this paper. I do feel this needs to be prioritised, and I'll propose it on that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Forson, to second.
Yeah, very happy to second this paper. As for me, it covers two of my responsibilities, which is the champion for the promise and the champion for equalities for the council. And again, I don't make any apologies for making sure that this policy is brought forward, because I think it's important for so many different reasons. As Lorraine outlined, Clackmannanshire has higher levels of looked after children than anywhere else in Scotland. Many of these are placed out with the authority. And we do know that young people who are looked after, if they're looked after by kinship carers, their outcomes are ultimately much better. And I think that plays into a lot of what we're looking for, and indeed our commitment to the promise. Our kinship carers, they go above and beyond, I think, in many different areas. And whilst there was recent agreements because of the Scottish Government to increase the level of allowances for kinship carers, it isn't the same as that received by foster carers. Therefore, agreeing to a kinship order can have many financial burdens, and it can also be a barrier. There are many barriers to this, but financial barriers are very often up there. So I think that this small in the grand scheme of things investment by the council to support our kinship carers goes a long way to improving outcomes for our young people, and it might just be the difference between someone being able to decide to be a kinship carer and not be a kinship carer. In the first paper we debated today, we discussed, we talked about our priorities. And part of that was aligning resources to tackle inequality and poverty, and I think this is a perfect example of where we're doing that. We are seeing that looked after children are a priority, we're seeing that kinship carers are a priority, and we're taking measures to support that and ensure that more people can come forward and do that. In relation to the funding, please be assured that every opportunity I get, I'm shouting the case for Clackmannanshire to get more funding. This is another example where we have higher levels of need than other areas of Scotland, and the funding formula that's currently in place just does not go anywhere to meet that. So every opportunity I get, every opportunity the Chief Executive gets, we're shouting that from the rooftops for Clackmannanshire. As to whether it's having an effect, I'm slowly coming around to the view that we're making small inroads there, but we need to continue to do that, and I would encourage anybody who's in any forums to continue making that case for Clackmannanshire. This is a good paper. It's doing exactly what we're setting out to do in our priorities, and I would ask everyone to support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor open to debate. Councillor Rennie.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, 100% agree with what Ellen just said. Kinship carers always seem to need to get the wrong end of the stick, because people feel that because these children are maybe going with grannies and uncles or aunts, they're in a position where people can afford to do it, and that's not always the case. And then when you get kids who have to go out of the area to actually get somebody to look after them is just shocking. And the more we can get in, costs so much money to the council as well, apart from everything else. It's not a good way of actually getting these children into a proper relationship within the area that they've grown up in. So I'm 100% approval of this paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCluskey, before Councillor Long.
Thanks for being up. Yeah, I was very pleased to read this paper and I'm more than happy to support it. Having earlier on this year supported our constituent through our kinship process, I've seen firsthand the difficulties and the stress that families go through. And Councillor Forson made comment about the financial barriers. So it's great that this one area we can go and support these families, and it's one less area they have to worry about when they're caring for a child. And I hope that long term we can, when it comes to budget setting, we can certainly find the money somewhere to keep this going. I think it would be really important. It will be very welcome by the families. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Sorry, I forgot what's really here. I'd just like to echo kind of what everybody else has said. You know, I think it's really important that we help kinship carers, however possible, especially financial kinship carers who have taken their grandkids in under very difficult circumstances, and especially when, you know, it might not be what they were planning. They were looking at retirement and they had to kind of change that because they've taken on their grandkids, and you know, the financial implications is really high. So I think anything that we can do to help them and keep kids within Clackmannanshire is welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn, to be followed by Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. No, I'm listening to the questions and debate, and obviously, there is a consideration of the cost, and also, you know, is that cost going to be there in the future? Because obviously we know we're not in great, you know, the best situation that we want to be in financially, but for me, politics is about priorities. And, you know, looking at kinship carers and young people who are often disadvantaged and making sure that's a priority for me. And so I'm quite happy to support this paper, and you know, quite happy that, you know, the amount of money over the council budget is a relatively small amount of money. I think we can all prioritise that going forward in the future if we need to, and then get additional funding from the Scottish Government. So on that basis, I'm quite happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. Initially I was concerned about this paper because when I first read it, I thought this is just giving money away. There's a means system there, a means testing system. This doesn't need to be done because it's not done elsewhere. However, having listened to the contributions of my colleagues around the table, the rationale I feel was missing has been inserted into my thinking, so I'm very happy to support it.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Lieutenant.
Thanks, Convener. I am a kinship carer, although she's not been at school for a long time, so this doesn't apply to her, and I don't know any financial support for her. However, the circumstances that she was in when she finally was allowed to come to us, it took a long time for that to happen for various reasons. I don't actually know where she would be right now if that circumstance suddenly changed and she came to us, because she's been allowed to maintain links with family. She's been brought up as a wee sister rather than a cousin, and it's made a massive difference to her life. So if we can encourage just one further kinship carer or one child to remain in the body of their family, by this very, very small spend and this very, very small element in the grand scheme of things, then I'm definitely in favour of it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any others? Councillor Lindsay, you want to say something?
Just very briefly, just to say, no, I think it's actually a really good discussion, good debate, and hopefully, that rationale is clear. I can understand how it probably just looks like a paper that comes in. It's just a bit of something additional for people, but for us, it's got, this is a prioritised group of people. It's part of our additional measures that I outlined earlier that we're already looking at. It's part of that bigger picture. Perhaps it's just ensuring that we make it clear that it's tied into that wider agenda in terms of the promise and in terms of working as corporate payments. So really welcome the discussion, the debate, and the positivity around this. It's the right thing to do. It is and should be a priority for us. So thanks very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Are you happy to approve the paper? Thank you. Just take a minute to give Councillor Martin an opportunity to come back. Okay, thank you. So item 10, the Children's Services Plan report 22-23, is going to take us through.
Thank you, Convener. I'm presenting this report on behalf of the Chair of the Children and Young People Strategic Partnership, Ms. Sharon Robertson, who is our Chief Social Work Officer, and who can't be here today. The purpose of the Children's Services Annual Report is it's a statutory requirement and it must be submitted to Scottish Government. It's a partnership report, so that means that it also has the contribution of all the alliance partners, and it will go to the next alliance meeting also. So this morning we're asking for your approval before this report was forwarded to Scottish Government and to the alliance. The report is attached to Appendix 1. Many of the actions you may recognise as they have appeared in previous plans, for example, the People Directorate Business Plan, the Promise Plan, the National Improvement Framework Plan, Violence Against Women Plan, the Family Wellbeing Partnership Plans, which were most recently all approved by Council. The achievements across the partnership are significant, as contained within the plan. In particular, I'd like to highlight the reduction of children on statutory orders, the growth in the third sector activity and the expansion of early help. That activity has significantly grown, and the support of the whole family wellbeing funding that we have, and a reduction in external foster and residential placements. I should say that some of the data that's contained in the appendix is significantly out of date now, because that's the data that is lifted into these reports from the LGBF framework. But we do have a reduction of 67 down to 53 of external foster placements, which, as you can imagine, provides a saving into Clackmannanshire Council. We also have a significant reduction of external residential placements of young people out of the authority, from 12 down to 9, and a further 3 expected in future months. We also have child protection re-registrations now sitting at 0%, so they're all significant achievements contained in the report. I'm happy to take any questions that the colleagues here from Children's Services and Community Education. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. So we'll go to questions. Councillor Forson, to follow Councillor Bennett.
Thanks, Convener. I suppose my question, this is a statutory report that's not just the community's responsibility, it's the responsibility of all community planning partners. But we're here today, supposed to sit from a council lens, and I know that people here to answer questions are council officers. And for me, that I suppose begs a question of the scrutiny of the partnership in this. And I suppose as chair of the alliance, when this report goes to the alliance, and perhaps pick up on it then. But I guess my question is are we receiving full buy-in from all of our partners in delivering this? because very often it ends up being the council who is ultimately responsible and is held to account for these sorts of things. And are there any other areas where partners could maybe provide a bit more of input to get better outcomes?
Thank you, Councillor Parsons. That's a very good question. I'm going to try and answer diplomatically. So I think since Sharon has taken up chair and Colin Mercer is also the deputy chair of the partnership, there has been an increased focus on getting partners to come to the table with both activity and evidence of impact of that activity. And the area that I would say that we still struggle with at times, and I know that Sharon shares some of that frustration with me at times, is actually getting people to come forward with the evidence of it. So partners are very good to say we're doing X or we're doing Y and there's activity, but actually to then collectively to say what difference is that making to children in Clackmannanshire and their families is an area. So bringing forward the data in particular from those organisations is a challenge, and then collectively evaluating that doesn't just sit within the Children's Services Partnership area. I think it's an area that we all would recognise is still an area of development across partners and, to be honest, within the council as well. So I do think that we can hold them to account within the alliance more. But I think it's definitely a work in progress and has improved in the last 18 months or so, I would suggest.
Thank you, Councillor Berry.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just one thing, Lorraine, page 109, which gives you a whole plethora of different percentages of what's happening within the children's area and young people. One thing that really struck me was the rate of teenage pregnancies has been down, but that's only from 2020 to 21. So is that the latest figures we have?
I think that's the latest figures we have from health, and I think this has been an area of interest, and I know that it's an area that Sharon has been trying to address with health colleagues, that we need a holistic plan around about this. It's not one particularly. We do have a lot of activity in education, and we also have a young parenting project which sits within the People Directorate now, but that overall is still not having enough impact in terms of the support for the figures in the first place. So I'm not sure if colleagues from Children's Services would know if there's any up-to-date figures, but I don't think we do have any up-to-date figures. I think that's the latest figures that we have. We're aware that we do have a small amount of young girls in a couple of our schools, so it is a continuing. It's not as if we're managing to remove that area of concern. So even though the figures are not up to date, I think it's still an area of priority for us.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. It was just to flag an opportunity that we have at the moment. We have a new interim director of public health, Jennifer Champion, who some of you met during our COVID engagements. And Jennifer's just reached out to me and is really keen to speak to us about how we look to improve our collective approach to public health. So I think just given the conversation at the moment, I think these are exactly the sorts of things that conversation will focus on.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, I was going to basically say exactly what Ellen says about 13, 14 years ago. Senior manager in social work said to me, we need a universal response. So that's where I was, is there anything that can be done at a higher level to focus? Sorry.
I think the channels that we have, and Nikki's just identified a new one, although it shouldn't be a new one, it's a new person who's particularly interested in working with us, and that's often what happens, isn't it? Somebody new comes along and they've got really interested in working. But I think increasingly that multi-agency working across different parts of the public sector. I think we're really trying, as part of the work that Nikki outlined in the first paper that we heard today in the future, of trying to get people to come into that space with us and actually realise that collaboration is the only way forward. None of us can solve all these issues. They're too complex and too wicked in some ways for us to be able to do that. But we do have a plethora of data And we've had the work recently through the City Jail and the health inequalities and the shaping places for wellbeing. I think it's about trying to pull all that into one space and actually think, you know, how do we use that data with the right people? And I would think Councillor Horson, if I may say so, the Alliance is one of those places where we really need to be pushing that.
And also can ask about the volunteer development team. Can someone tell us a wee bit more about that? I was interested in especially because I see further down about the new through care aftercare worker and the animal assisted therapy. And I've always thought animals, wildlife, nature has a great part to play in healing. And I wondered about the SPCA, because, you know, is there going to be a project where we have young volunteers or, you know, as I say, I feel it's really therapeutic. I've got a house like that, you know, but I just think we're missing an opportunity if we haven't got a project like this, and surely it would help them as well.
So I'm trying to find in my papers, I've been trying to honest, where the reference to the volunteer development project. Is that the SFR, is that the Fire and Rescue Service project?
It's page 117.
Oh, you can see that volunteer development team. I'm looking to colleagues here within either education or children's services, if you can help me out here, but it's not something that I've got first-hand knowledge of.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you can't tell me, I can
we can follow that up with you.
I can, but it's just, it's worth noting, you know, I think.
So I think it's, Councillor Portion's just saying that she thinks it's CTSI, so I think there'll be a range of projects that are absolutely in that space that you've just highlighted, and I think trying, you know, all sorts of different opportunities to engage young people, whether it's through, you know, animal therapy or whether it's getting them into a volunteering project, is absolutely what we're trying to do as part of the partnership. And CTSI sit in the partnership, as the FRS actually, and I suppose the through care and after care, part of the worker perhaps. Jenny, are you able to pick up on that bit?
The through care and after care worker referred to is a mental health support worker. So that's an additional support that's been introduced through our mental health funding to support our through care and after care population, dedicated wellbeing worker.
Right, so I can just say, I see that what I just said has been part of that, the whole wellbeing.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do, to draw all those, and it's almost a person-centred approach. So there's a range of opportunities, whether it's youth volunteering, whether it's and actually thinking about how we can support those young people as they're moving through the journey, and what can we do with partnership to really strengthen that offer.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor
Thanks, Convener. You mentioned that the placements, the external placements have reduced, and that the information in this report is actually a bit perspective now. Obviously, reducing external placements has a financial benefit to the council. However, I'm more interested in the benefits to the children. So under health and wellbeing of children and young people, inequalities are reduced, things like that. Are we seeing evidence that this is actually starting to, show benefits to the children now and in the longer term in the future? Thanks, Lynn. Thanks,
We can certainly point to benefits for individual children and individual young people who have stayed at home and in terms of their outcomes. In terms of the overall approach of us most recently bringing those young people back into Clackmannanshire and working through their outcomes, I think it would be fairly early. days. One of the things that we're really keen to do is to get that longer term view as to how we can make sure that the outcomes at each stage of the kind of transition points for young people are met. So it's not just about getting them to destination, which is a real focus for education and keeping them in that destination, or getting them into employment, as Chris has been working with us on in terms of. But it's housing, it's all of those different areas. So I think we still need to do a piece of work which actually maps all those outcomes into one place. But there's certainly evidence that when we bring young people back, providing the right support is there. And I think that's why this isn't looked at in isolation, and it's where we perhaps have fallen down in the past. That's the part of the child service redesign, is to make sure that the support is there, whether it's through care or after care, whether it's early help for our families, or whether it's a service through an hour or the whole family wellbeing family support funds, to make sure that those families and individuals are supported. So and that's a bit of a mixed answer, Taggart, to be honest. I think for individuals we could definitely come up with benefits, and we could show those. In terms of the ground, I think it's early days to show that we're making that progress. Thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor Cook.
I hesitated slightly because it's a bit of a silly question. Page 147, teenage pregnancies. I just wondered why we report 13 to 15, 15 to 17, and then 15 to 19. I mean, because that just masks a massive improvement in the older age group, 18 to 19. And I just wonder, it's an inconsistency I don't understand.
It's just the reporting mechanism from health and the data set, and it's not chosen by us. I'm not sure as to the rationale as to why that, but that's like a lot of these indicators, they don't generally make a lot of sense to those of us who are working on the ground, and we would like them to be changed at times, but that's the ones that are measured nationally against, and that's yeah.
Okay, any others? That's that then. Councillor Hamilton to move the paper.
Thanks, Convener. The Children's Services Plan report is evidence that the transformative work that has been produced in Clackmannanshire. This report shows how important it is to work collaboratively to achieve outcomes for our young people, and I'd like to highlight the improvement over the last few years of figures for our foster care and residential placements. This isn't just a financial implication, but also the best place for our young people to stay in the community they're willing to involve. The report also evidences the ongoing work to meet our promise commitments and updating funding for the Family Wellbeing Partnership, including additional funding from governments and additional basic support through the partnership working with the SUSTAIN programme supported by our. I would really like to thank the team, Sharon, Lorraine, and Gillian and Joanne and Chris. As always, there are figures all parties will be aiming to continue to improve. There are improvements to the hard work and vision and commitment to making a meaningful and positive difference to improving the lives and well-being of children, young people and their families. I am happy to propose this paper.
Thank you. Councillor Lindsay to second.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, just building on Councillor Hamilton's points, it is an incredibly detailed paper, and a part of the document Forson's outlined as well. It responsibly sits with partners with the output manager and not necessarily just with the council. And this is ultimately a paper for government. It's probably not user friendly in terms of getting through, and although I'm pretty impressed with Councillor Cohen's extremely forensic approach to filling out statistics. But it is a hugely detailed paper, which can be difficult to chew through. But it does provide a detailed overview of the work being delivered to transform the lives of our young people across Clackmannanshire. I think page 109 has already been referenced, and it does give us a stark reminder and stark context of what is really an unacceptable context for us in Clackmannanshire. And I think something that it's probably our rationale for all of us being around this table is to attack some of these quite difficult statistics that sit before us. So, I think we have to use that. It's important that we use that, but we use that to fuel our passion for how we deliver against some of those challenging facts. However, for every challenge that we do face in Clacks, I think we've got a number of programmes and initiatives that are wrapping around the families to give our young people the best possible start in life. And not least, just to mention a few, the Family Wellbeing Partnership Strive, Violence Against Women and Girls Strategy, the Icelandic prevention model, the digital device rollout, digital wellbeing, mental health and wellbeing transformation project, our active schools and summer programmes that have been delivered, NCR Pathways as a partner, parental engagement programmes that have already been referenced, and that's to name a few. So the reassuring element is that we do have, a suite of resources and initiatives and whatnot to wrap around each and every one of those challenges and statistics. As part of the child wellbeing project activity, the young people from St Mungo's Primary also created a Managed Children's chapter for childcare, and I was absolutely delighted to attend the ministerial visit just the other day to look at the work that's been done in and around that, and what is effectively a model for school-based childcare provision. So just that was an opportunity for me just to raise that and highlight the amazing work that not just goes on in that particular project, but the huge amount of work that goes on across the whole children's services team. That was a real example of partnership working focused on delivering positive outcomes for young people. One area to pick out in terms of that improvement within the children's services is, and Elaine has alluded to already, is the number of people returning from residential care. And whilst that is extremely important and crucial for them as individuals, it's also important from the council from a financial perspective, because these are significant costs that the council face for each individual that has to go into residential care. So pleasing on many fronts on that one. So please support the paper. Thanks.
Okay, so the paper is now open for debate. Councillor Russell.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, for me this is a very good report, I just do want to reiterate that it's not a report just for the council. And very often it's Clackmannanshire Council who has to bear the brunt in not just producing these reports, but also putting the work into ensuring that outcomes are achieved. And I think that's certainly something as the chair of the alliance that I'm trying to shift, and get partners to probably come to the table a bit more and be a bit more explicit in the reports and the outcomes that are achieved. I think we do a lot of good partnership work, but I do think there's more scope for partners to perhaps contribute a little bit more and probably make it more explicit exactly what it is that they're contributing to. I was pleased to see that the people who set it up keeping their promise. I think that's very important, and we've demonstrated today that as a council we are absolutely committed to keeping that promise. And again, we just need to make sure that our alliance partners are also as committed to that work as well. The report details so much work, there's so much going on all over the place, and I think councillors would agree that it ties in with many of the papers that were brought to the previous meeting in relation to the violence against women work, in relation to the national improvement frameworks and all the other kind of focuses that we have as a council. And again, one of the frustrations I certainly have is that there's so many of these reports that have to be completed, that take up so much time from officers. For me, it would be great if we could come up with one report where we could just, kind of tickle the required policies. But at this time, we're statutorily required to do all these, and we will continue to do that until someone much higher than us actually comes to their senses and lets us perhaps do one report. But great report here. Thanks to our service, but also the services delivered by the partners. And I suppose we our shared aims here, but good report.
Thanks, Councillor Dawson. Councillor
Yeah, but I agree with what Ellen's saying here as well. I mean, I think there's a lot of manifestations of partnership working in this report, but there needs to be an awful lot more. And you're right, it's great. It's almost, an acceptance that everything's on the shoulders of the council. So I could see a change there. But it's a really good report. And I know the stats are the historic now that it was quite so alcohol related hospital admissions of 25 years And related costs to the weather machines that got them to 25 years. No, they're relatively high, and I hope that they've gone down. But yeah, the report itself, it's very good, and you know, I would say thanks to the service. And I can imagine that at times like Dennis remarked, it's like reading through Chico, but there are making a difference to folk. You know, there's things around here that would be unimaginable 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So, you know, like I say, they are making a difference, and little ones have.
Thank you. Any other contributions? Councillor Hamilton, would you like to contribute something? Okay, so as I read the report, we submitted to Lions Board on the 6th of October and also submitted to the NHS Schools Valley Board for approval. What we've been asked to do is approve the content of the Children's Services Plan and report 22-23 and the submission to Scottish Government. Happy to approve. We're going to have a 10-minute break just to sort of share those in this session. We'll be back for 22.